This episode is brought to you by Lone Wolf Paintball. They are an amazing online supplier and have been around since the beginning of the game as Michigan's premier paintball field and paintball supplier since 1987. They are rapidly expanding into the online retail space and supplying everything you need to be the best paintball player you can be. They have got it all. Head over to lonewolfpaintball.com and shop all of your favorite brands. And they also boast amazing customer service and will have this out to you with same-day shipping, which is amazing. It's always nice to know that your stuff is on its way immediately so you can start to use it that very next weekend of play. Check out their YouTube, Lone Wolf Paintball, and their Instagram, @LoneWolfPB, and stay up to date with all of their deals and sales. Play the Game podcast is immensely honored to have them on board, and we cannot wait for you guys to check out lonewolfpaintball.com and become a part of their community. This episode of the PTG Show is brought to you by Andrew Lopez Law Professional Corporation, a California injury lawyer, and they are on a mission to get justice for their injury victims. Andrew Lopez Law provides comprehensive services from car accidents to slip and falls and handle a wide range of personal injury cases with expertise. Their recent victories include a $2.6 million jury verdict, a $560,000 settlement against a rideshare company, and with their expert legal representation, you can trust that a dedicated personal injury trial lawyer with years of experience will be fighting for your rights. Andrew Lopez Law is a family-run law firm with free consultations, personalized attention, compassionate support to guide you through every step, a proven track record. They're available 24/7, will work tirelessly to maximize your compensation you deserve, and they work with a no-win, no-fee policy, so you don't pay unless they win your case, which ensures you receive justice without the financial risk. If you're in need of an injury lawyer, then look no further and call Andrew Lopez Law PC at 213-474-1100 for your free consultation. And once again, that number is 213-474-1100. And also follow Andrew Lopez Law on Instagram at Andrew Lopez Law PC. And once again, their Instagram handle is Andrew Lopez Law PC. One last time, that number is 213-474-1100 for Andrew Lopez Law to fight for your injuries. HK Army is proud to sponsor this episode of the Play the Game podcast, and they are excited to announce that the $20 cases of paint will continue into the NXL Chicago event, and this opportunity is open to any teams attending the 2024 NXL Chicago Open. This means that any organization, regardless of sponsorship, can take advantage of shooting Level 5 exclusive HK tournament paintballs for only $20 a case, and the new formula just got done winning back-to-back events for the Texas and Atlantic City NXL events, as Russian Legion was shooting ball-on-ball HK paint to win those events in dominant fashion. You have got to check out this new pink shell yellow fill formula and give it a try for yourself. So what are you waiting for? All you have to do to reserve your paint at the NXL Chicago is email the HK squad at sponsorship@hkarmy.com to get on the list. Do not hesitate because this paint is going to sell out fast. Head on over to your email and send your message to sponsorship@hkarmy.com right now to get on the list. If you want to ensure that your team dominates at the 2024 NXL Chicago, then shoot the best paint with HK Army and email them now at sponsorship@hkarmy.com. This episode of Play the Game podcast is brought to you by Daan Sports Canopy Booths, and we are super excited to announce that PTG will be rocking a custom Daan booth at all of the WCPPL events, and we cannot wait to see you there. Daan also has a crazy deal for PTG listeners that allows you to get a 10 by 10 foot canopy and frame for only $700 shipped. Daan booths use durable 1.6 inch heavy duty aluminum hexagonal frames, are fully coated to provide waterproof protection, use superior fabric construction, and incorporate full color dye sublimation printing. Get your custom canopy today at DaanaSports.com and mention you heard about the deal on PTG to take advantage of getting your $700 custom booth right now. Click the custom tab at DaanaSports.com and start designing your booth today.
What's going on, PTG Nation? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This episode, we have one of the game's most iconic legends, Billy Ceranski, one of the OG Aftershock players and currently the CEO of Core. which is the largest paintball manufacturer in the game. So this is an episode you guys do not want to miss. Without further ado, we're going to hop in the show.
That was an insane inside move by Marcelo Margot. Great communication.
And the crowd starts chanting Harmon.
Great shot by all the guys. So Tyler Harmon saved that game.
He came out with 2 wins. Marcelo Margot was on fire.
PTG Nation, we're back at it again, and we got the legend himself,
Yes.
Billy Ceranski, in the house, and he is one of the most iconic players of all time, in my opinion, and also the CEO of Core Outdoor, which is tremendous, and we're excited to have you on. Billy, how you doing, bro?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes,
Of course,
sir.
brother. Yeah, thank you. Pleasure is all ours.
Yeah,
I'm an
definitely.
old legend, and you guys are the new legends or the current
Hey.
legends. I don't even know how that works. But
We learned from you guys, you know, and
Big
you
time.
guys all paved the way for us to be, you know, doing our thing today in the modern day of paintball. But I'll never forget being just a youngster, you know, playing with Bobby out on the West Coast, and being able to see you, Aftershock, and so many players. Also, I think Ryan Williams was from the West Coast
Yep.
as well. Yep.
no,
And-
Danny.
Oh, that's
Ryan was
right.
a Wisconsin boy. Yeah,
Danny Love was out
Yeah.
on the West Coast. Yeah. But just seeing you guys play with such passion and such fire for the sport. And I know you still carry that into the business world as well. And you're playing 10, man. So first of all, we'll just start off with where you're at, where you tuned in from, and how's it going?
So I am in Southern Florida right now, getting ready to head up to Canada for a little bit at our plant up there, do some work.
Nice.
And then the end of the year, go down to Texas and do some more work down there. So yeah, I'm good overall. Sold our house, so we're in a bit of a transition, living at an Airbnb right now till we get ready to head up. Not
There you
done
go.
that before, so you know, chaos, always chaos in my life. Can't escape it.
Yeah.
I think I
So-
attract it.
Nice.
Where did you sell, and then where are you moving to?
So we lived in Boca Raton, South Florida, which is just north of Lauderdale or by Miami on the
Yeah.
East Coast.
Mhm.
And we're going to go up to Montreal for 3 or 4 months. We're
Beautiful.
doing some updates at the plant, doing a bunch of other stuff. So we'll be there for that. And then head down to Texas around the Dallas area. We're starting to do more with some of the fields there.
Yeah.
And, you know, Giant Party Sports. And,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah, talk to us
around.
about that. There's a lot of rumors. Apparently, you one of the new owners of Giant Party Sports. Is that true?
I wouldn't say I'm a new owner per se. Gio still owns the field. Myself and Mark Johnson have taken over operations of the field. So, you know, I
Okay.
think the relationship is we're leasing the business, right? We've taken over the business from that standpoint.
Mhm.
And yeah, we're going to push forward and do some things. You know, the main goal here is to try to help grow paintball. I have a lot of friends that are in other industries, and a few of them have, you know, gyms in jiu-jitsu gyms, basically,
Mhm.
or MMA gyms. And one of the things that they've pointed out is, and they've actually just recently started to get into paintball as well, bought a small paintball field in a small market. He
Nice.
said, you know, the one thing I've noticed is this is like jiu-jitsu gyms or MMA gyms, you know, 15 years ago, which wasn't the greatest thing to hear, considering that we've been around a lot longer, you know, when you think about it, that, you know, there's a lack of a certain amount of infrastructure and organization, you know, to help support paintball fields.
Mm.
And, you know, from our side, that's our main focus at Core, is to help grow and build paintball. You know, I don't necessarily sure that message gets out the right way always, right? Because I think the way people see that is through tournaments and, you know, that sort of front facing side, which we obviously participate in. I think it is, you know, very much focused on the paint side. And then, you know, some soft goods and other things. We don't really dabble in guns or other stuff like that. But, you know, all that to say, our main focus is helping paintball fields grow and giving them systems and processes. And it's really hard to do that at times, even though we talk or sell to, I would argue, every major paintball field for sure in the United States. I would say there isn't one that doesn't buy from us in some way or that we support somehow. But to have conversations and say, look, this guy over here, and I'll use Anthony does this at Boston and he has a lot of success, and here's what he does. And then to have another field owner, wherever, in Washington go, yeah, that's not going to work here. Or can you give me more detail? And we can't, right? We can connect those guys to talk. But as you guys know, it's hard enough to get all the stuff you have to do in your own life done, plus whatever business you got, plus train, plus this, whatever all those things are, and then have time to talk to another field owner potentially, right? That just doesn't tie out. Yeah. So what, the whole plan here is to learn to put those systems in place and things that we've learned from the other field operators and build out systems that we could give, right? Give all the data, give everything that's worked for us. And then just give it to either other people in the market, that local market, or anyone else around, the US or the world for that matter. And then build systems out, because I think what probably goes unnoticed is that I would argue over the last 10 years, we've had more paintball field owners get out than get in, right? So that's not the greatest thing for paintball, for growing paintball as we would, see it. And part of that problem is there is no good way to say, hey, I want to open a paintball field. For sure, we can sell you all the equipment and then say, good luck, and we're here for you, right? That's not always conducive to building a great business or having a lot of success. And as an industry, I would say that's in an area across the board where we've, not done well. And, that's part of it.
I totally agree. And we speak about it often. I mean, paintball parks are a player's first exposure to the game. So it's really important that these systems are in place and that these players are given a good experience. If they don't have a good experience their first time playing because, a business owner just doesn't quite know how to provide that, that's a problem. If somebody shows up to a paintball field and doesn't enjoy it, not because of the game itself, but more so because of the experience provided, we want to minimize that as much as possible. And so, we've floated the idea of having some sort of PTG thing where, we can call fields and kind of help them, understand how to provide a good experience and what things go into, maybe turning a rec ball player into a tournament player, which is, all of these things that are really good for the growth of the sport and for retaining business and keeping people excited about playing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that if you had to say things that are broken is the wrong word, but where the industry's probably got a little sideways is, I was guilty of this when I was younger. And then as just going through and changing where I sit in sort of the stack, as we'll call it, the paintball stack, whether it's a player in business, whatever it is that, if you want to play paintball, it doesn't matter how you want to play paintball, you're a paintball player then, right? That's how we should view you, whether you know it or not. We want you to be a paintball player. And I do think over the years, I can speak from this, when Walmart first got in, people would make fun of is probably not the right word, but, treat people who showed up with Walmart equipment to their stores or their fields as, second, oh, I can't believe you bought that junk, right? They're second-class citizens.
Where I got my first gun was Walmart.
Right, and exactly. So what should have happened is, oh, you got this from Walmart. Is that how you got into paintball? How did you find us? It should have been more, bring those people in and excite them. Like, hey, that's great. Here's other equipment, right? This is going to be hard for you to keep up with at a paintball field with all these guys. Let me give you this rental gun to use because it may give you a better experience, right? Mm-hmm. So we did that, and then over the years we mixed a lot of players. Where guys like us, who are playing for a different reason, right? We're more competitive. We're trying to build skills, whatever those things are. You get out there and you start playing against, a kid and his dad, and you're blowing them off the field and you're cussing at them, you're cheating when they don't really know what's going on. So that was like another phase of silliness. And then I think the other part, that is hard and that, goes back to the field part is to your point, how do we get people who are interested in paintball, who play, right? Once in a while will come out for a birthday party, but want to compete or want paintball to be more, or how do we make paintball more for them? Even if they're just going to be like a walk-on guy, right? Who's just going to play consistently and go to big games, maybe little local tournaments, nothing crazy. How do we get them out or convert them? We don't have a good system for that. Never have. And then on top of that, how do we take those guys that are potentially more competitive and then turn them into is the wrong word, but foster that so they can become, tournament players or a more competitive style player. And I think that is probably the most broke system we have, because you could make the argument, if you talk to a lot of fields, they're like, oh, we hate tournament guys, right? And I think there's some justifiable reasons, right, for sure, to maybe not like those guys as much or not want to cater to them. But also, if you had to look at it, I started playing it in the 80s, right? So that'll date how old I am to a certain degree. But that's.
I started playing in the 90s. It's not too bad,
Unfortunately, I would take if you played late 90s, you were young when you played 15. So I probably started playing right around when you were born, maybe before. So
I was born in 1990, so
definitely
you
before.
got me.
I gotcha. But all that to say, right? I played forever, right? I still play.
Yeah.
So,
you're one of the founding fathers of this whole thing, essentially, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm
essentially
generation 0. I'm generation 1, I would say.
Yeah, that's right. Because it was the next generation that you started really attacking it on. Yeah.
Yep. So all that to say is a guy who gets hooked in a competitive way is more likely to stay in the industry for a long time, potentially, right? Whether you get work or play, you're going to play a lot. 2, you don't necessarily get to play for free the whole time. In most cases, you have to be at the elite end to have that happen, right? So there's YouTube. I think I would even argue some of the pro teams that are out there today probably paid most of their way, right? There's very few out there that get everything paid for overall. So and you guys play, I think it's a little less so than it used to be, but we played,
a lot,
2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
In different things, especially when I first started playing. So the money that a player spends, a competitive player spends or invests in paintball is a lot. Plus, that's what they tend to go out and tell people, right? I remember the first time I was out, and I forget where it was, but one of my buddies who played with us was like, we're out at a bar or something. He goes, and some girl asked him, he goes, "What do you do?" I play professional paintball. Now, of course, in a bar that comes off as ping pong, or pinball, or anything but. Go ahead.
I cracked the code, by the way.
Yeah.
I think every single trip that I travel, I'm going to wear my Team USA shirt and I'm going to bring the trophy. So on the way back from Paris, on the way back from Paris yesterday, I had the men's Team USA trophy and my Team USA shirt. I am not kidding. I was telling my girlfriend last night, I think I took 15 pictures with people in the airport.
Awesome.
Like it was unbelievable. You felt like a legitimate celebrity. People are staring, walking through. Everyone could see paintball on the chest. They're like, paintball. Oh my God, that's so cool. I was like, this is about as cool as it gets. Every single trip I go on, I'm just that's my outfit.
That's a good outfit. That's good. But so all that to say, right? Like one, people now saw you with paintball. 2, they may ask you questions. You can do this for a living? You can do that, and whatever those explanations are. But I compete. I do this. So, and then I think that the natural bridge that comes is hopefully when you're out at the paintball field, and there's other people maybe who are like, hey, what is this? That you talk to them, say, hey, here's how you can compete, do all these things, and so you can actually help foster bringing people out. And all that to say is, a competitive person or someone who's hooked into paintball, whether it's big games, right? Because those guys go compete, to any of the things, whether it's DK Nations, the Blackhawk game in Texas, it's not D-Day, but Ion in PA at Skirmish. Some of those guys are out there competing, right? There's missions, Living Legend. There's things to do, and there's a whole group of people that aren't just there to have fun. They're there to do stuff, right? So, but all that to say is those guys are hooked. They are going to play more than everybody else. And so there's real money to be had there to help support fields, to grow, word of mouth, all the rest. And I think, when you really look at it, though, that there is just a natural gap right now where there are fields who are like, yeah, I don't want to have anything to do with those guys. And I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
No,
I also think
it
that,
doesn't.
it has to be a good balance, because supporting competitive guys to come play, I do think it goes unnoticed how much that really costs to do, right? And we're learning that. We're updating a field right now to redo the turf, redo all this stuff, make it level, do a bunch of stuff. It's probably going to cost us 15 or 20 grand to get all that done, right?
Yeah.
To have guys come out and play that often want to, play for next to nothing, right? Or bring their own paint or do all these things. So the revenue split there from a cost base is a little skewed, and I think that creates some tension. And it's because no one's ever sat down and go, look, you want all this. I'm cool. I would like you to do A, B, C, D, right? So that there's something that goes back and forth to help. Come teach a clinic or be out there, be my pro, right? My field pro, that when I have a bunch of kids, that just teach them some skills, right? I don't need a lot of time. I don't need a lot of stuff, but that for you to play here and, maybe have some perks that other players don't get to have, for sure. And then there's this thing that goes back and forth where everyone can go, look, in the stack, I get support, I get this. And then, on the field side, I get some revenue. You guys are helping me grow. I can do all these things. Because, I think that's the part that's probably most broke. And if you had to look back to the glory days and to where we are today, the biggest change isn't necessarily the number of people who play, I would say. I think it's the mix of, now we're more rental based, right? Which is how we started. And through the late 90s, early 2000s, we went to more walk-on based, I would say, people who own their own equipment, regardless, again, of how they played, right? That was a bigger percentage of that mix. And we've kind of trended back to a more, rental base. So that can be healthy and good for fields, for sure, as long as you can market and keep getting those people out there. But as far as selling goods and doing everything else, the mix is different, right? Like it becomes far different. The amount of times people play is different, So I think that's the mix, or that's the secret sauce for us to figure back out, or to figure out how to execute, so that we can, one, continue to get new people, two, convert some of those people, right? You're never going to convert them all, but convert enough of them to where, they want to own their own equipment. They want to play more, be a walk-on, and then or compete a bit. And I think the next knock-on effect of that is the more they're into that, the more apt they are to maybe watch, the webcast, watch the NXL, watch you guys do what you do. And then they talk about it more, and it becomes a thing, right? And that's, I would say that's what we don't have, right? Like if I had to really look at something, that for sure doesn't exist in any way. And I think people are trying to do different things inside the industry. And obviously the NXL is doing their thing for the, for the competitive side and the big league, doing the webcast, doing ESPN, because they fronted that money to do that, right? Like, I don't know if everybody realizes that, but that wasn't a cheap lift, right? You have people like, Poop and Todd Adamson, I call him Poop, to go on something with one of our guys. Hey, we're going to do this thing, and Poop's going to be there. And our guy tells somebody, goes, why are we going to have a guy named Poop on something that's serious? And they said, well, this is Todd Adamson. He goes, oh, right. So
okay.
It's doing a lot. Him and his group help get Hertz involved, all these other things that everyone's trying to do together. And then I would say at the other end, there's field owners, certain field owners doing teams, other people not doing, right? Like everyone's doing little pieces rather than going, okay, well, if we can do this together, what are the little things? How do we all support each other to make that work?
Yeah, I love what you're encapsulating here, because it's imperative for our success as an industry, as a cohesive unit of paintball. And also, I think that what you hit on with the fields of having a system in place, we haven't had one ever, not a cohesive paintball system that is like a funnel that funnels players from coming into the sport, seeing, and it could very well be as simple as, we're going to buy you a $99 TV. We're going to send you this video that you're going to put on the TV, and you're going to show every paintball player this video, and it's going to give them the foresight to say, oh, you know, this is how I'm starting. This is the options after I'm done here. This is what's available to me as a paintball player. And this is the community that I want to be a part of, and show them why they want to be a part of it. Show them all the benefits. Show them, you know, all these amazing, as Matty Marshall would say, gifts of the game that we get from paintball that go far beyond the field, right? Of the relationships and all the amazing things that paintball provides. So I think that has to be at the forefront of our attention, and really spearheading that system like you're talking about, which is really, really great to hear you say that, because we, like I said, we have not had one ever.
Yeah, correct. And I think that is the symbionts that everybody has to understand is we're all here to play paintball. We all like paintball, right? Regardless of what level you want to play at or how much you want to play. That if that's the case, you know, to your point, the first place you get to play is the paintball field. So we need good professional run paintball fields. And I think we have a lot of those, right? Mm-hmm. And they need support from us as much as we need support from them, right? And I think that's the give that everyone's got to get in balance of. Because, you know, I think sometimes, you know, the field owners could be on the wrong end of that ask. And I think, you know, unfortunately over the years that the players were on the wrong side of that ask, right? And that built, you know, walls up or whatever that you still got to get over and figure out how it works for everyone. And that, you know, that's the challenge, is how does it work for everyone? And you can obviously do it. It's not hard. I mean, there's fields out there like Paintball Fit. That's all they do, right? Is tournament based players. And they have a lot of success. You have, you know, SC Village and Geo and Bear and all those guys out there now redoing the arenas and their whole deal, you know? And then, you know, I think probably one of the better or longer standing ways to look at it is the BKI thing with Anthony. I'm not just saying that because Anthony's my buddy, right? Like, he found a way to do summer camp. He found a way to do all these things. I think if you told me when we were playing, we're going to do a combine, I'd be like, get out of your mind. And all of that has worked. And I think it's you know, Team USA program, all that stuff spins out of that. And it proves that, you know, field owners and players can work together, right? Competitive players, however you want to look at that, for everyone to have success and win and get something out of it, right? Yeah.
And it's got to go both ways. It's got to be, you know, like you said, symbiotic, and we need to be forward thinking. That goes down to every single player and every single person that's at the paintball field. We really need to be forward thinking about the type of landscape we're providing at our local parks, because it has a much bigger effect on the overall outcome of how our sport's going to pan out, whether you realize it or not. So we really need to take pride in our parks. I don't want to hear messages on my phone of people getting, you know, in fights or whatever over paintball, getting shot or whatever. When we played, dude, it was insane. So if people are getting hyped up, we would get shot 20 times in 1 second and be like, oh, good move. That really hurt, you know, but we wouldn't rage out and try to fight each other. I mean, maybe sometimes it happened back then, but I
think it was happening more back then than it is now, to be honest.
There weren't any phones.
Come a long way.
No phones.
There weren't any phones. Exactly. There's no video. No video proof.
And I do think, you know, that was part of the style of the game, is those guys expected that, right? Like, the only time I ever got mad about getting shot up is if I felt you were just shooting me to be a jerk, right? Yeah. And then, okay, start taking stuff off. Let's just fight, right? If you shoot me and you lump me up because I did something dumb, or you caught me, or I was the last guy, that happens. But, you know, like, you know, some of our guys for sure, like Ronnie Simpkins, great player, but he would walk you off the field and shoot you off the field. And then I would tell him, like, hey, you got to stop doing that. And I said, he goes, well, they'll just do it back to me. I said, I don't care what they do to you. I goes, when they do it to me, because Ronnie, you accept it. I don't. Like, I'll just fight.
It's not going to be.
And I don't need to get in fights for no reason because you did something dumb, right? Yeah. And I think the challenge of that, like you said, is when those things happen to some dude, it's the first time he's ever, you know, come out to do a practice, right? He has no clue what's going on. He really isn't. And then he just gets lumped up because that's what it is. And then he's like, yeah, this is the dumbest thing ever. Or even worse, right? Like that happens to a guy who's just out there with his kid or something else, or that's what they see, right?
Yeah,
And they see
exactly.
the chaos, and then as a field owner, you're like, well, that's my bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I need this? And everybody goes, well, we're competing, we're trying to do this, right? And it's the symbionts of going, yeah, I accept that you're doing that. I accept that you need a place. I accept that you need these things to do. But you also have to accept that this is a business, right? If you go to a jiu-jitsu gym, because that's where I spend most of my days now to get my stress out. We have guys who are ultra competitive, right? They want to compete, and they fight harder. They don't get to train necessarily with the other guys, and they go off to the side. And you also have times where you're like, hey, this is going to be a more aggressive day, and it's at a different time or different whatever. Just to make sure you don't chase people off. Because
I love the assimilation too with jiu-jitsu, because I think that there's so many similarities, and we've actually spoke with some fighters on the show about this as well. And there are some, cognitive similarities. And then even just the way that we posture in our gunfighting stances has a really, really fight dominant style to it. So I think, and just like how, not everybody's going to be into jiu-jitsu or motocross or, these aggressive sports. Maybe paintball isn't for everybody, but it is for a large group of people that like us find joy in the thrill of running around on that field and shooting the paint out there.
For sure. I would say that we have by far, if you like adrenaline, and running around and something that's hard to do, right? That requires skills, and not necessarily just skill as in athleticism or anything else, just skills, right? Like hand-eye coordination, other stuff like that, timing, mental capacity. We have by far the best game with the least amount of negative repercussions. You know what I mean? I think you could say fighting for sure, has all those things. You got that hand-eye coordination. I think you do have to be a little bit more athletic than we do, potentially.
You get really lumped.
To be good. Yeah. But there's a definite negative repercussion if you make mistakes. What's so bad about paintball? You get shot, you get a weld, maybe, right? And in some cases, if you're shooting good paint, you're out there and do everything else, you don't even really know. You get hit, you walk off. But we have all those things.
Billy, I want to touch on that really quick, especially you being the CEO of Core. But how important is that to a first-time player's experience? Some of this paint out there is so hard that it's incredibly painful. Like, how mindful are you guys at Core of that not being an issue?
I would say the most mindful of everybody in our industry, I think. And not to toot our own horn, but we have full staff that sit at our plant that we would call R&D, right? How to make a paintball do different things. I don't think anybody else in this industry who makes paint has that per se. That's focused solely on that. And we have, I want to say, 5 different formulas to deal with cold, and that's probably 2. But all the rest, and that doesn't include tournament paint, right? This is just basic,
right? Yeah, of course,
off the mill paint for fields or whatever. All the rest are how can we make them break in extreme weather. Now, I think maybe some things that are inherent that we know that most people may not know about paintballs is water is always trying to get into a paintball or out of a paintball, right? And there is some water in a paintball, but that's what it's doing. And as that processes through the shell, it can make the shell, what we'll say is harder. And for us, if you're manufacturing, harder actually means bouncy. Okay. Harder means fragile because the shell gets basically crisp and it'll shatter versus what we would say robust or bouncy, right? For us, it's a little different in manufacturing. And the only reason I bring that up is when people talk to guys at the plant, they're like, I need paint to break better this, and they go, you want harder paint. And if you're just a paintball guy, you're like, no, I want it to break. But anyway, we make paint that can live in very hot and humid climates, very dry and hot climates, very cold and humid climates, because all those things, and then dry and hot, right? All those things affect the paintball differently. Humidity is a paintball from a fragility standpoint's enemy, no matter what you do, because that's water trying to get into that shell, right? And that's going to just make the shell more squishy.
Yeah.
So, for example, in Texas, we have what we call Advantage, and that's pretty much what we use almost all year as soon as the weather breaks. So call it March through, I would say, probably October, because the weather stays, relatively hot and humid. Florida is probably year round, and that paint is made to work better when it's hot and humid. And I think the other big thing is most people, who go play, if they buy their 500 paintballs, those 500 paintballs sit in a box or sit in a bag, in their car or on a desk, on a picnic table. So it's not like they're being taken care of the same way yours is or anything else, right? So it is going to get more bouncy over time, almost by default, unless it's very cold and aired out, and then it'll get more fragile. But we build paint specifically for that, to make sure that the paint breaks, and we push as many people as possible to use better paint. And better paint costs more to make, more to control, and everything else. And that is why we push that across the board. And one of the things we're going to do at Giant here over the next few months is switch all the paint to Marbleizer, right? So high quality, competitive paint, which is probably more than most base consumers would care about. But again, if you can prove out that you can do this, make money, and give that customer the best experience, they should come back more, right? They should get more out of it and say, yeah, paintball is really good. Didn't hurt, didn't do all these things. Because, I will say that probably our biggest barrier to get kids to play or younger people to play, via their moms or parents, is that the number one thing is paintball hurts. I heard it hurts. And we still hear that constantly. We did a special event with, I forget what they're called, but it's basically spouses of people who are in the military, right? So it's predominantly moms, and they all came out. I think we had 200 moms that came out and played paintball.
Awesome.
Right? That were all, based on this. And they're like, this is the greatest thing ever. And it was fun. It wasn't what I thought. We had always thought it would hurt. I'm going to bring my kids to play. I was not going to do it before because I thought it was this. It was totally not what we expected. And, that was really good. They're trying to help get that to be an activity that the military uses more. And,
love it.
That would be great, because it definitely fits right in the wheelhouse. And I think you guys know for sure, there's very few ways to get stress out, in a positive way.
Yeah.
But again, they're outside of tripping and falling or being silly, there's really no long-term repercussions. You know what I mean? To play paintball in a negative way. You're not going to get hurt. None of that's going to happen.
No, it's one of the safer sports that there is, actually. As long as you're safe and you wear your mask and you take all the safety, measures, it is an extremely safe game.
That is a fact. I think we're safer than golf from an injury rate. I don't know how the hell you heard.
Yeah. Oh, those golf balls are sizzling through the sky at people. And then I think that another thing that we can incorporate into the system, or that package that we, have fields be a part of, is, educating the users on paint management as well. Like in that video, or in that dialogue of how we're getting them to know the game better, we also need to let them know that if you want to have a great experience, you've got to take care of your paintball, or if you want the people around you to have a good experience, rather, take care of that paintball, because if you let it sit in the sun and you do this to the paint, first of all, you're not going to get the elimination. You're going to bounce them. It's going to hurt that individual like heck, because it's just going to, there's no break on that ball when it sits out there. So I think that would be a super important component of that system that we really start to dial in at all the local parks, because I see it every time I go to the field. The paint's just sitting on the tables or, out in the sunlight. And I'm like, oh no, I go and put it in the shade and things like that. But we got to make sure that awareness is there as well for the new players.
100%.
Yeah.
Educating people on our industry is not what we've all done well, for sure.
Hey, we're getting there. We
try every day. Every day.
Yeah. And straight paint is incredibly important too. I've definitely heard stories, friends at the gym that play other sports, and we get talking about paintball. They tell me about their experience of playing. Like, I went and, you know, like I'm shooting my gun, but couldn't hit anything. You know, balls were curving 15, 20 feet to the left, to the right. And then I get shot in the neck and it hurts. And I'm like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, there's no, how is that fun? And I'm like,
No,
well,
it's a fact.
you had a bad experience. I'm sorry about that. But, you know, that's why I think it's super, super important to, you know, for field owners to be mindful of this. And field owners want cheaper paint, but then that becomes part of the problem. You know, like we need to pay for a good product, at least enough to get a good product. Billy, what would, you know, be like one solid piece of advice to fields to provide a better experience for first-time paintball players?
I think what I would say is, again, depending on the type of player, but let's just say it's first-time player. Most of those are probably younger. Is, you know, tell your staff or as you set up whatever systems or from a mindset standpoint is, treat that person like it's your kid, right? Or someone you love. Anywhere around that, if you don't have kids or whatever, but you know, this is how I would want my kid to be treated for me to spend this money. And I think if everybody does that from top to bottom, you know, and understanding that that person knows nothing, right? So you can't get mad necessarily at people because they don't know anything. You know, should you give them rules and all the rest? Sure. And if the person continually doesn't follow the rules, do you have to be a little bit more of a stickler or, you know, more assertive? For sure. But 9 times out of 10, you know, that's not the people who come. You just want them to have a good time. And if you treat them like you would treat yourself or expect to be treated yourself or anybody anywhere else through the whole process, you know, I think that people will just have a better time by nature. And, you know, I would say that I think most fields do a good job of that for sure. Now, more so than we did in the past. I do think, you know, over the years, you know, that we did just churn through people because the people just come through the door constantly. But I think now most good fields do a better job at that overall. But that to me is the biggest thing, right? But, you know, again, I use all my references back now with things like jiu-jitsu and other stuff that, you know, I help a gym out, train. First time guys who come in, they know nothing. And they could be huge, big, muscular guys who, you know, are wrestlers or whatever else. And they're definitely harder to handle, but you treat them slightly different than you would treat some, you know, young kid who comes in, who's never trained, who you could tell is nervous, or even a woman who comes in. You want them to have fun. You want them to go through the experience and not be like, yeah, this is dumb, I'm out, right? Like, I'm
exactly.
Never doing this is not what I wanted or thought. So that would be the biggest thing. You know, treat that consumer the way you would want to be treated at a paintball field the first time you came play, right?
Absolutely.
I think a benefit we have is most field operators are paintball people. I think a negative we have is most paintball field owners, or I would say anybody in paintball, business owners, are paintball people first, right? So there is a combination where that's awesome and also completely negative. Because you can't get out of your own way, right? You've never seen anything different. This is what we've done. This made me successful. This is where we're at, right? And then when you think about it from a business standpoint or growing our industry or doing anything else, you just like, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
We got to make sure we cultivate it properly. Definitely.
Yeah.
So Billy, I got to ask, dude, we got to dive in. I got to have your backstory in the game. People don't even know about you and how you started, but I want to talk about like how you got started in paintball, how that turned into a professional career and how it turned into you know, being at the helm of one of the biggest paintball companies in the world, if not, I think the biggest paintball company in the world. So like, how did this journey all start for you? Thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for the tremendous support with the PTG show. If you are enjoying these episodes and want to help with the progress and development of this program and connect with like-minded, hungry paintball players, then head on over to ptgpodcast.com, click the orange Patreon link, and become a member of the PTG World Discord chat room. And now back to the show.
So I was 14 or 15. I would probably say I was 14 when I played. I think I've told most people I was 15, but I got a job when I was 14. Back then you could get jobs at 14 and you were expected to.
Yeah. That was the way it was
anymore. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Cause you were going to buy a house at 18 for, you know, 50 grand.
I wish. I'm not quite that old. I'm not quite that old. But got my first job, and the manager there was a guy named Quan. It's Vietnamese.
Yeah.
And he was going out on like a Thursday or Friday after work. I go, "Where are you going?" He goes, "We're going to go play paintball." And I go, "What is that?" And he explained what it was. And I said, "That doesn't exist. There's no way." And he goes, "No, absolutely." And I said, "Okay, I want to come play." And I think the following week or 2 weeks later, he took me for the first time. This place called Taps, which was in the Bay Area. It was an indoor. It had it was in a giant warehouse, I think probably 20 or 30,000 square feet. And it basically had little buildings inside the warehouse. And then it had
No way.
a big building right in the middle that you could go on top, right?
Dude.
And shoot down, and you could run underneath it. So underneath it was like a maze. They called it the maze because there are different areas and tunnels and stuff. You could shoot down on top, and then you could shoot people off the side in these buildings. And it was all, in low light, to say the least. I wore shop goggles, not even real paintball goggles, because those didn't necessarily exist at that point, to a full level. A baseball helmet, like a batting helmet, right? And it had a little PGP pump pistol.
Hell yeah.
Drop the CO2 in, little 10-round tube in the front, and ran around like an idiot. And I loved it.
Dude,
That's how
getting
I spent
rowdy.
spent all my money doing that. When people, just to give an idea, when people say, "Oh, it's so expensive to play paintball," right? All these things. That whole experience, I think I shot 20 paintballs, played for 2 hours, and bought 2 CO2 jets. That cost $50.
Yeah, and $50 at that time is like 200.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
So that was my first.
Yeah.
That was my first experience, and that was way better than throwing rocks at each other or oranges to pick off the trees, because that is how we ended up playing tag for a long time before that.
Where did you grow up, Billy? What city did you grow up in?
Santa Clara.
Yeah, Santa Clara.
Oh, Bay Area.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was. I was born in the High Sierras, on the other side of the valley, up in Sonora, California, up there. That's where I was born.
I was born in San Mateo. Then my mom and father and I lived in just outside of Vegas, I think. I don't really remember. Then my father passed away, and we moved to back to the Bay Area.
God bless him.
To Santa Clara. Yes.
Yeah, man. And yeah, but what you've done, you've cultivated a lot of culture for this sport too. I mean, just that movie Push alone, I watched that movie every single day. I would come home from junior high and high school, and I would pop that VHS in, dating myself as well here. VHSs, they're these big blocks that you would put into a VCR, and I would watch that movie literally every single day. And you were one of the stars of that movie, and I'll never forget the intensity, the camaraderie, the passion, and the drive, to win tournaments. And you could see it in the eyes of the players. You could see it in the way that the team culture was as well. And that kind of thing really inspired me and drove me to say, damn, this is what I want to do. This is, I want to be like Billy. I want to be like Danny. I want to be like, all these amazing players, Roque and Lasoya and all these guys that were in these films. So I want to kind of talk about Push and what it was like at that time, like being in that time, looking back at it and what it was like then.
Yeah, it was definitely different than it is now. Overall,
yeah,
I would
for
say,
sure.
We were the young guys. So I was, that video was at mid 90s. So I was in my, early 20s, mid 20s. But that the sport was for sure, I think, transitioning a little bit to a younger group. But when I was first in, I mean, this was a little bit for you too. You were the young guy, right? I was. Yeah. When I first really started playing competitive, I was probably 19 at that point, right? And Bruno and I were so excited. We'd argue who was older, which is funny. Like I was like a few months older than Bruno, so I'm older than you. I'm not the young one, because you didn't want to be the young guy because everyone else was 10 years older than you.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I still hang out with Gary and Spud and
Oh, no way.
Chicago and say, oh yeah. I actually just saw Gary this last weekend.
Awesome.
And obviously Todd and I are roughly the same age. He's older, to be clear, because now you want to be younger, not older. He's definitely older than I am. And, so you wanted to not be the young guy, but it also meant that for us, practices were very intense. There was, everything was about being there to get better because we weren't there all day, right? Like our guys came in, especially the Michigan guys, they were there. They got there at sort of 9-ish, be ready to play by 9:30. And they were done by noon. But we would play 20 games, right? Because you never came off. You just back to back to back to backs. And, back then the team was much better. So you'd load up and 10-2s would last you 8 games because you just run through people. But inside of that, even though, it was chaos, if you did something dumb, or goofed off or weren't ready, everybody got on you. It was a total accountability to be there, that our time was important because most of these guys had families, right? Like you're not messing around. We're not there to goof off. It's quality time, play, have fun, be together. If anybody messes with us, take off your stuff, go defend yourselves, and sometimes go cause chaos, right? And then internally, if you goofed off and you got lippy, you got held accountable. You got tossed, beat up. It was
held accountable.
It was rough, but I think that translated to, like you said, the intensity and everything else. I always wanted to have fun playing. Sorry,
no, go ahead.
Playing because that was the whole point. But man, when we went to a tournament, it didn't matter. It was about winning. And when we weren't playing, we'd have fun. We'd go out. We'd do all those things. Probably a little different than it is now. And but for sure, when we got to that field, we weren't walking around hanging out, talking to everybody.
No,
that wasn't one thing to do, right? It was there to go compete. And if we did go watch somebody play, it was to see what they were doing, see tendencies and the rest. But it was very intense group of psychos for sure, at least on our team.
Well, you guys dominated and kicked everyone's ass, and it was really fun to watch. And I once again, I assimilate it to jiu-jitsu. We can go right back to that, to where you're going to have these quadrants of players that are working at a much higher frequency, and things are going to be a little bit more chaotic at the pro level, at the top tier level, as opposed to when you have, divisional play and beginners and all that. We want to make sure that those types of energies are sustainable for those cultures to continue to grow. But at the top, it is active. It is active. It is highly intense. And everyone wants to, rip each other's heads off and win the paintball game. We want to win,
Absolutely.
And that's at all costs, whatever it takes.
Then you can see it. It's a little bit more complicated for me now in the position I'm in, right? Because I'm basically a sponsor. That's what we do, right? We sponsor a lot of the higher end teams and mid-tier teams and everybody else along the sort of the food chain. Yep. But now I've got Todd, who's got Aftershock back. And now I have to watch and balance out. Because obviously, they have different sponsors. They use our paint, which is important to us. But when they get to play, say Marcelo in Dynasty, it's hard to sit there and go, who do I want to win? It's very easy, unfortunately, for you, Tyler, when it's Dynasty plays Heat, no problem. I know who I want to win. Aftershock plays any of those guys. I'm like, no problem. I hope they pound.
I know you're rooting for me. I know you're rooting for me, brother.
I root for some of you. I like
Thanks,
some of you.
Bro.
Actually, you guys are good.
Hey,
but,
all love.
Those rooting and watching that gets more complicated because obviously from an overall sponsor, I would love to see Dynasty win, right? Because the JT, they're GI Paint, they're all those things that we want, right? And several other teams. Like I think our best, vision of any of it was kind of what happened in Vegas when it was you guys and in the Hurricanes, right? That was awesome. Can't go wrong with that. And I think over the last few years, been fortunate that most of the finals have been that way. Dynasty and someone that's sponsored by us. But when it's on the other end, when it's Aftershock and them, I got to sit there and I always have to root for Todd because I have to.
You have deep Aftershock ties. I'm not mad about it.
I know. But those things when you're sitting there and you're watching, because not everybody understands, and they go, "Why are you over in this pit?" I go, "Because it's Todd." Right? I wouldn't be in any other pit. Outside of if he were to go play for the All-Americans or something, then he and I would have to have a talk.
It's so good to see him back, man. And he kicked some butt out there in Europe too. They were doing really good and having a great time out there as well.
I think go ahead. Sorry, Marcel.
Real quick, Billy, before we get into some Discord questions, I want to hear what you were about to ask, but check this out. I want to share this with you. It is the first version of my new signature series gun. I don't even know if I'm supposed to share. I'm sharing it anyway, but
this is show you how old I am. I got to put my glasses on.
Look at that. Is it like
black
and yellow. Homage to the, there we go.
Yeah.
Like a butterfly sting like a bee.
Like a bee. That's right.
Yeah. Do you still have the autococker? So what this is kind of an homage to is your early autococker with those. Is it the 3 yellow stripes on it, right?
Yeah, 3 yellow stripes. Yep. Yeah. So I do. It's at my buddy Rob's house.
Nice.
I've been somehow nominated to be a general in DK Nations.
Hey,
never done that before, so that's going to be chaos. But
salute.
He lives in Southern California, so he's got the gun. He's going to bring it up for me.
That's badass. I love that you still have that and that it's around, because that was the one that you were shooting in Push as well, right?
Right.
That was the
yeah. I've had the pretty different variations of it, but it's always been the same gun. I tended to break them or wear them out, so Rennick would always get me a new one.
Hey, yeah, actually, playing hard.
Yeah, Rennick owned all the guns, and it wasn't. I don't know. It's probably 5 years ago when we started doing the ICPLs or whatever the other leagues were. He brought it. He bought it off one of those raffle sites, and then gave it to me.
There we go.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I want to go back to, like, we're still talking about Push, and Tyler, you said how much that film inspired you, but really it inspired a full generation. So did Serial Killers and some of these other DVDs that like truly pushed an entire generation that I would argue is at the top of the pro ranks today. So I think it's really important that we have more content and films like that. I'm really excited about the Hormesis films that are going to be coming out.
Absolutely.
That kind of stuff is also what, keeps players interested in tournament paintball and competing and practicing every weekend and doing all the stuff to chase a professional career in paintball.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you got what Todd's doing with the Shock video.
Yeah, that too.
Like you said, with the Hormesis guys, doing all those things, and the Dynasty movie, I think, or whatever it is going to be that's coming out. It's all super important. And I think one of the things that probably needs to happen more is more filming at probably practices and stuff with some of these guys, and turning that into more long form, content, movie-ish type stuff rather than the snippets that everybody gets. Cause I think you're right. Our benefit besides the game, right, which I think is the number one thing we have, is playing paintball. I would say, if done right, is fun for everyone, right? Or can be. It can be scary, can be all these things, but at the end, you're going to be like, that was maybe not as bad as I thought it was going to be. That was fun. Sure. Like, I think you can get all those things, right?
Agreed.
But I think the other thing is, just the lifestyle and the group of people that play is so broad-based that if you can show how that can help you, right? You can find somebody who fits, right, that you identify with, because I do think that's more important than maybe I ever assumed it was, in life. Maybe because we were just crazy, that we just identified with everybody who was crazy, and that's what you did if you play paintball, right? So maybe I just never put all that together. I don't really know, but I do think that's important, and seeing more of that stuff. You guys at practice, you guys out after, the way you guys deal with things at a tournament, whatever it is, or just hanging out. That, like, man, the lifestyle. All your friends came from paintball. Yeah. So for me, I've had a lot of, strong friendships over the years, but the friends that I talk to now are the friends that I built through paintball, right? All the way back to the beginning. Those guys like Rich, Rob, Opie. Opie grew up in Northern California. He played with us. Yeah. He used to sleep on my sofa, right? Before practice. And all those guys I either work with now or still talk to or still hang out in some way, shape, or form, right? That's like we said, the 80s. That's a long time. And I don't think most people can say that about, their friend group. That they're important that way. And that's all from paintball.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it's the best. It truly is on so many levels. And I want to ask you, like, from your career as a pro player, what was one of the most legendary or memorable moments that you had when you were playing? I know there was quite a few in there.
I would say, so saddest moment was winning World Cup for Push, because that's when Gary and Spud quit, right?
Yeah.
That's when they stopped playing. Now, the positive of that is we had Todd, we had other people, Little Ryan, all those guys were coming in, right? Well, Todd had been there for a while, but like Little Ryan was really coming on, and some of the other guys. So there was that bridge. But, you know, those guys were the guys I hung out with, roomed with, chaos with the whole way through. Danny he's still there, but he was really, you know, starting to phase himself out. So that would be like the saddest. And it was a happy moment, obviously, winning World Cup. I would say the other, probably outside of winning the first World Cup with Shock in the early 90s, which was still, you know, behind Old Town. I don't know if most people don't actually know that, but it used to be behind the end of Old Town. You just walk out all dirty and go straight into the bars or the restaurants, and then walk back and go play with idiots.
Dude, that's awesome.
But then I would say winning the first to lose, right? So go to France, it was 7-man, not what we historically did. And then that was also the first time they ever rolled out airball. So we got there, it was chaos, and we go win that event through, I think, by 1 point or something over the All-Americans. You know, Robo has a great game, shoots all of them because we're running around like idiots. They thought they had shot us all in one. Bruno most people don't know this. Bruno gets ejected from the event because they said he was on heroin. Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Threw him out. This is in the finals, by the way.
Because they said what?
He's on heroin. He was crazy. Like, he would go crazy, right? Like Mike would go crazy. They couldn't deal with it because and he would be right. I would argue Mike was probably more right than he was ever wrong about what was going on, because when he would do whatever he was going to do, the dirty or whatever else, no one caught him. No one knew he was. You know, he did what he did. But 9 times out of 10, when they'd run in there and he'd go nuts, it's because he really wasn't hit, or they didn't do what.
Yeah, he's like, "What's up?"
They thought he did. Yeah. So they kept getting him and attacking him, and they pulled him out. And they finally said, "Look, this guy can't play anymore," because he would go nuts, right? He would yell. He goes, "He's obviously on drugs. He's on heroin. He's on something. He cannot play." And we're like, well, he's a nut, but he's not on any of that.
He's
right?
good.
And so they threw him out. So we took another guy from another team that was already out, and he played with us.
Damn.
So if you think of all the chaos that you could do, arguably one of our best players, you know, was thrown out. 2, we just get to pick up a guy who wasn't on our roster to start with to play, I think, the last game or the last 2 games, right, of the finals. All this happens in the finals. And then we win by like 2 points because Robo shoots 4 dudes because they didn't know where he was. And then we just pounded everybody else. All the first time you ever play on a balloon ball field in a foreign country. So I would say that was probably
sweet.
Pretty sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
And then Billy, it sounded like you were going to ask something about Team USA before.
Oh, he was just going to say that they swept it.
You guys rocked, right? You won. The females won. The you guys won. The old dudes won. The young guys won. Right?
U19. Yeah. It's the second year in a row USA has swept all 5 divisions. So pretty cool. Definitely a good feat. And actually, the veterans had their backs against the wall. They were down 3-0. It's Mercy 4. Mercy 4. Wow. Yeah, kind of crazy. So they had a nice little comeback there.
Nice.
They were hyped.
I think that was actually one of the questions from the Discord. And Billy, we know you got to go here pretty soon, so we'll jump into a few Discord questions if you don't mind. But Lil G from the Bean, Billy, first off, what a comeback for the veterans. He wants to know, would the USA be as dominating if they went back 10 to 20 years?
Oh yeah. Yeah, wouldn't even be close. I would say I would argue we could play. Well, let's just say it's 10-man because playing with 5 with less dudes is too complicated. But if it were 10-man, I would argue we could play with 7 and probably not lose a game.
Back then
we were so far advanced from other nations, you know.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. I'm being a little facetious about playing 3 guys down, but I think it would have been equal to what it was now, if not worse in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agreed.
I think the skill gap is closer now than it ever has been. So I think it would be, you guys would win by quite a bit back then.
All right, we got Jimmy Hickey. Billy, thanks for all you do for the sport of paintball. I'd love to get your take on something that seems to fly under the radar. Paintball's presence in big box stores. Many of us, myself included, got our start by picking up Brass Eagle markers And paintballs from places like Walmart and playing in the backyard.
Bingo.
Feels like this entry point into the sport isn't discussed much these days and isn't really a focus when we talk about growing paintball. And he wants to know, I've noticed that my local Walmart only carries the JT-ER2, which is from you guys, and that's about it. There used to be much wider selection across the big box stores. What are your thoughts on economics and impact of having paintball products in the big box stores?
Yeah, I would say it's incredibly important. It's kind of what we touched on in the beginning,
exactly.
right? Is how to, the thing we have to figure out is how to bridge that to where those players who buy stuff don't just go, plink at home potentially and, never actually really play paintball, and find a way to get to paintball fields. The hard part is, I think for the, exclude Amazon, I think we're the only guys who really play in that market to deal with, those businesses. You have to be fairly complex in your systems that you have to be able to support what they want. And then, the other complex thing is you have to hit the good price points, right? Like they want that stuff that's in the beginning, and they really kind of peter out at, sort of mid, 150s, because that's just not the customer that's there. That comes through those stores. So, it is the fine balance. And I think it's incredibly important. Funny timing wise is last Wednesday, I was at a Walmart line review, talking to the buyer, going over, new things that we want to present and, seeing where she's at and trying to expand the set. And one of the things that we're working on is trying to find a way to get, some way to say, hey, here's where you can play if you buy stuff, from Walmart.com, whatever it is, on something that they maintain, some site that they have, to say, hey, here's where you can play, right? Type in your zip code, type in whatever it is, and find a paintball field. And that is something we're actively working on. It takes, probably 18 months to get that done. But, that was a real conversation that we had. And I think that could be incredibly beneficial, for everybody. Even if someone were to buy something from Walmart or the rest, to have traffic that flows through to go, hey, man, there's a lot of people who want to go play, and they keep finding these fields. And yes, they're buying more stuff. Because for them, for sure, all the mass guys, sales is what generates, your ability to have more space and time. And, we're very fortunate, I would say right now, to have a really good buyer at Walmart. So she's open to us grow with them, right? It is, like we said, a symbiotic thing, but, on how to build that and move that forward. And, it is important. Because it's free eyeballs, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to tell you that the old stat was 300 million people walk through something Walmart owns every month, right? That's a little bit less than the U.S. population. So I don't know how many make it to the sporting goods aisle, but if you just assume that's 1 out of every 10, they go, hey, what's this?
What's that?
Oh, paintball, right?
Yeah.
That's incredibly powerful.
Like so I said, that's where I got my first $25 plastic Stingray Talon. Yeah. That was my first gun.
It is important. It's important to the food chain. It's important to all of it.
Absolutely.
All right, we got OG Cole. Billy, if you could change one thing about the current version of X-Ball to make it better for divisional players working their way through the ranks, what would it be?
I'd limit the paint.
Yeah,
very interesting.
I like that.
We were just talking about this too.
Yeah. I'd limit the paint. I think that would be the big one. I would say too that, I think the guns don't probably help this just the way it's done. I also may say if you can't limit the paint, I'd get rid of the whatever ramping full auto thing. I'd make you squeeze the trigger every time. Because I do think, as much as, guys can hold streams or shoot relatively fast, you can't do that for a minute, right?
Yeah.
So that would incite more movement, more thought, maybe more working together.
This is amazing.
I wish it was semi-auto. We
lit
that forever.
You guys would never.
Although I think I would shoot more paint. These fingers are fast.
It'd be fast for a second, then they'd be like this big around, and you'd be like, cramp. But I think all those things would help people who are creative or want to move, do things, right? Change the way the game is, so you don't have to be so locked in and focused to something. You can play and have fun. And also just from an affordability standpoint, right? Like we did say, competitive paintball is probably the only time paintball gets expensive, because if you had to think about it, the average person who comes and plays paintball, on a rec side probably pays $50-ish, $55 to play. But in most cases, that's for hours at a time, right? It could be up to 4, 5, 6 hours. Name something else you could do for 6 hours. For
Golf.
Yeah. Well, right.
Well,
So
golf's expensive.
Right. Yeah. And then that's just because of the nature of the game, right? The way it plays. But
and actually, Billy, that's really interesting. Coming from you, CEO of dominant paint company.
Yeah.
You don't think that would hurt the company? Obviously, you're going to be selling less paint.
Yeah.
But it's better for the sport.
My hope would be is they play more. So I probably get to sell the same, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think they'd have more fun, so they'd stay longer, right? So
I
ultimately, I win over the life cycle.
That's right.
I mean, instead of keeping and burning out those guys in 2 years, we get them for 4.
I agree.
Or longer. Yeah.
This is we literally on the last episode, I think. I'm not sure if it was the last one or the one before. We were just talking about this, and we were hitting on the same exact points that you're making right now, and we couldn't agree more, man. And also, anytime that you can add another level of skill to the game, which I believe the trigger is another level of skill. If you're good with your trigger and you can make, hold a lane and get, like Marcelo said, he's going to be shooting probably, maybe a little bit quicker than that guy, but he's trained for that. You added another level of skill to your game. I think that adds more context to our sport as well.
Yeah. Running and shooting, all those things get harder.
Or
more. And I think what I would also say is when people talk about, ingenuity in the sport, right? Like the next grade of equipment, is it so easy or hard to shoot any of the high-end guns fast now? No, you go 1, 2, 3, or however the thing works, and you go like this. And when we did try to switch back to whatever that little nuance thing was for a while, everyone hated it because no one could shoot fast because you didn't have to, right? Like that skill set when the Angel was there and some of these other things, right, where you had to learn to do all this nonsense, that skill set's really kind of gone because you don't have to maintain that. You don't have to do all that, right?
Yeah.
You have to do it for a second to get the gun to ramp up. But other than that, doing it over time, right, and being consistent in shooting and doing all these other things, you don't have to do. And that would all have to come back, which means all the gun manufacturers would have to find a way to make their guns easier to shoot that way. And I would, I shot an autococker up until the bitter end, right?
Yeah.
When we switched to the first NXL. I think that maybe the last year I played, I used a Shock Tech Intimidator for a little while.
Yeah.
Right. But because I couldn't shoot any of those electronic guns fast. I couldn't shoot my autococker fast, but I could hit things. I couldn't hit the side of a barn with an Angel or anything else. And not because it wasn't a good gun. It's because I would try to make it shoot fast. Right. And I wasn't focused on doing the one thing that I needed to do, which was either get really close to somebody so it didn't matter or, just shoot straight. And I think the reason the Intimidator, I think, went on the run is it was, for me at least, and again, not a fast person, very easy to shoot fast, right? And still accurate. And I think that's why it kind of leapfrogged the Angel at the end. And then when all the guns went to, whatever we want to call it, 15, I think when we did it was like 15 balls a second, full auto, right? Yeah. And then now it's all ramping. Like the gun doesn't have to be able to shoot fast well. Right? Yeah. You don't have to do anything. I do think that's, not to give kudos to anybody else besides Core, I'm just kidding, that's one of the reasons everybody likes that EMAC so much, right? It's a mechanical gun that you can rip with, that arguably you can shoot as fast as any electronic gun out of the box that's not on some kind of ramping or full auto mode, right? You can shoot that gun fast, and it's fun to shoot, and it's accurate, and all those things. And that would have to bring that back, I think, to all the gun manufacturers. And you could have another race where people are trying to make their gun better in some way, outside of just being, more efficient or a little bit easier on paint or just being a new body style, whatever it is. Because at some point you do max out what you can do, right? We know that.
Well, Billy, I know you're a busy man. I think that you've probably got to take off. You got, meetings and things to handle. But we want to thank you so much for taking the time to stop by. And we're excited, obviously, for the future of paintball, everything we got going on. And hopefully we'll see you. You're going to be at Chicago, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I'll be at Chicago for a day. Got something going on, but I'm going to come in, drop in, say hi, and do a few things and meet some people. And
nice.
Perfect.
Get out and then be back for our wonderful World Cup.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you once again for everything, Billy, and thank you for stopping by,
Thank you,
brother.
guys.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
all the work
Thank
you guys do, and thank you for all the support. And
Yes.
keep up the great work.
Yep.
Of course.
You too, bro.
All
Have a
right.
good day.
Thank
Peace.
you, guys. Cheers.
Later, bro.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to ptgpaintball.com, click the orange Patreon link in the corner, and support the show. We greatly appreciate it. We have tiers as low as $1.99 a month. That is nothing, guys, and it'll give you access to the Discord, where you get access to the players chat and get to mingle with the entire PTG community. We have tons of different pros in there. Tyler and myself are very active, and it's an amazing way to support the show. We also have amazing other tiers. If you want to be one of the best, want to be a GOAT, sign up for the GOAT tier. It's the greatest way to support us, and each month we do a private live stream show, one-on-one kind of thing, to where it's just the GOATs, and Tyler, myself, will bring in some special guests every now and then, but you get to ask us questions in real time, live, on the air, and you get lots of inside juicy news that we don't share on the show. So, as always, we will see you guys very soon.